The year is 1405. In our history, China under the Ming Dynasty launched the most ambitious naval project the world had ever seen. The Yongle Emperor commissioned a fleet of colossal ships, the treasure fleets, commanded by Admiral Zheng He, a Muslim eunuch of Hui origin. These ships dwarfed anything Europe would build for centuries. Some reached over 400 feet long, 9-masted giants carrying thousands of men, cargoes of silk, porcelain, and tea, and the prestige of the Dragon Throne. Between 1405 and 1433, Zheng He led 7 expeditions across the Indian Ocean. His fleets visited Southeast Asia, India, the Persian Gulf, and East Africa. They brought giraffes to Beijing, paraded exotic goods before the emperor, and proclaimed Ming dominance across the seas. But after the Yongle emperor's death, the voyages ceased. The Ming court, fearful of expense and foreign influence, turned inward. China abandoned the oceans, leaving the age of global colonization to the Portuguese and Spanish. But in this alternate timeline, the Ming dynasty never retreats. The treasure fleets are not cancelled in 1433 but expanded. Zheng He's voyages become not just diplomatic missions but colonial ventures. The Ming, with resources far greater than any European kingdom, project power across the oceans. By 1450, the world belongs not to Columbus or Da Gama but to the Dragon Throne. Imagine the moment when Zheng He's massive ships sail not just to Malacca and Calicut, but across the Cape of Good Hope into the Atlantic. The Chinese, with their superior shipbuilding, maps, and navigational skills, reach West Africa a half-century before Portugal. Trading posts rise in Senegal, Ghana, and Nigeria. Chinese porcelain for African gold, silk for ivory, tea for slaves. Unlike Europeans, the Chinese do not initially build empires through conquest but through tribute and settlement. African rulers send emissaries to Nanjing, and Confucian scholars record their lineages in Chinese annals. But it does not stop there. In the 1450s, with fleets larger than anything Europe can muster, the Ming sail westward into uncharted seas. They reach Brazil before Columbus is even born. Chinese colonies take root on the coasts of South America. Settlers bring rice, silk, and Confucian schools. Local peoples trade maize and potatoes, which spread back to China centuries early. The Columbian Exchange, that great mixing of crops, animals, and disease, begins under Chinese auspices, not Spanish. Picture it. A village in coastal Peru in 1470, its people learning Chinese words alongside Quechua. A Confucian magistrate records births and deaths while Ming officials survey the land for taxes. Chinese soldiers, disciplined and armed with gunpowder weapons, defend outposts from resistance. A young Andean child wears silk robes, eats rice and maize, and recites Confucian maxims alongside ancestral prayers. In North America, Chinese expeditions establish colonies along the Gulf Coast. Fishing fleets from Fujian settle Louisiana, blending with local tribes. The Mississippi becomes a corridor of rice paddies and junks. By 1500, Chinese merchants sail from Veracruz to Nanjing, linking the New World directly to Asia. Europe, by contrast, is paralyzed. Portugal's voyages of exploration, which in our timeline circled Africa, are blocked at every turn by Chinese fortresses at the Cape and beyond. Spanish dreams of crossing the Atlantic die at birth, for when Columbus proposes his voyage in 1492, he is told the Chinese already rule the seas. Instead of leading the world, Europe remains provincial, overshadowed by the Ming's global empire. The impact on global trade is revolutionary. In our timeline, silver from the Americas fueled Spain's empire and flowed to China. Here, China controls the silver mines of Mexico and Peru directly. Instead of draining silver from Europe, they keep it in the empire, stabilizing their currency and financing further expansion. The Ming dynasty avoids the fiscal crises that in our history weakened them. Their global empire thrives on American corn, potatoes, and silver centuries ahead of schedule. Daily life across continents changes. In Africa, villages along the Swahili coast see permanent Chinese garrisons, intermarriage, and hybrid cultures. In the Americas, local elites convert not to Christianity but to Confucianism, integrating ancestor worship with Chinese rituals. African slaves are still taken, but sent eastward across the Indian Ocean to plantations in Java and South China rather than to Brazil or the Caribbean. Europeans, meanwhile, adapt. A Venetian merchant in 1500 laments that Chinese fleets dominate every sea, his profits dwindling. A Portuguese prince dreams of expeditions, but no ship he builds can match a treasure fleet. A Spanish knight, watching as news of Chinese colonies spreads, despairs at his nation's irrelevance. Christianity, instead of conquering the Americas, remains confined to Europe, its missionary energy stifled. The Renaissance still blooms, but it is slower. Without wealth from the New World, Italy's city-states remain rich but provincial. Yet ideas still spread, and eventually Chinese texts arrive, not through Jesuit missions centuries later, but directly via trade. By 1500, Europeans study Confucian ethics, Chinese medicine, and advanced cartography. The Renaissance becomes less about rediscovering Greece and Rome and more about absorbing Chinese science. Technological acceleration is staggering. Gunpowder, paper, and compasses already existed in China, but now they are global. Printing spreads to the Americas by 1500. A Mayan scribe, taught by Chinese tutors, records histories with movable type. Astronomy advances as Chinese, Arab, and American traditions merge. By 1600, telescopes appear in Beijing and Mexico City simultaneously. The scientific revolution arrives earlier, but under Chinese leadership. Politically, the world tilts, Europe never dominates. Instead, China, Africa, and the Americas form a triangular network under the Ming. Muslim powers in the Middle East coexist uneasily, sometimes allying, sometimes resisting Chinese encroachment. The Ottomans still rise, but they face Chinese naval blockades in the Mediterranean. The balance of power is not East versus West, but Dragon Throne versus Crescent Moon. The Americas become the greatest prize. Chinese colonies expand inland, clashing with empires like the Aztec and Inca. Unlike the Spanish conquests, which destroyed native civilizations outright, the Chinese system incorporates them into tribute networks. Aztec emperors bow to the Ming emperor as vassals, keeping their rituals but adopting Confucian bureaucracy. The Inca adapt Chinese terrace farming techniques, blending with their own. A hybrid civilization emerges, part American, part Chinese, stronger than either alone. By the 17th century, the world map is unrecognizable. Instead of Spain and Portugal ruling vast colonies, the Ming Empire stretches across oceans. From Beijing to Cairo, from Cape Town to Mexico City, from Java to Lima, the empire of the seas reigns. Chinese becomes the global language of trade. Confucian academies stand in Mexico, mosques in Beijing, cathedrals in Nanjing, a true fusion of civilizations. Would this world be better? Perhaps in some ways. The early integration of continents could spark faster scientific exchange, earlier industrialization, and a more balanced world order. There would be no European conquest of the Americas, no Spanish genocide of the Aztecs, no Portuguese slave colonies in Brazil. But there would still be conquest, hierarchy, and exploitation. The Ming, like all empires, would demand tribute, labor, and loyalty. Resistance would still be crushed, rebellions drowned in blood, yet the dream is powerful. Imagine the Statue of Liberty not built by France, but a Chinese pagoda standing over New York Harbor. Imagine American cities with Confucian temples, African coasts lined with dragon-proud junks, and Europe itself learning from Asia rather than ruling it. Imagine a world where the age of exploration was Chinese, not European, and the modern world wore the dragon's colors. So, what do you think? Would Ming colonization have brought an earlier golden age of global unity, or just a different empire ruling in Europe's place? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe to Sheriff Reactions for daily flips, because history isn't just what happened, it's what could have happened.